Kissing Tulips, Part 6. If I had thought the night was chilly on my walk to the pub, it was nothing compared to what it was now. But with the warm alcohol settled in my belly, I hardly feel it as I make my way to the graveyard. Clutching the crucifix in my hand, I idly count the beads one by one to keep my steps as even as I can. An hour's walk seemed to take no time at all, and soon the iron gates and tall spikes of the graveyard gates are looming before me, and the warmth inside me seems to vanish in a gust of wind. I'm left cold and shivering before the silent guardians. Pressing on carefully, I try not to look to either side, where countless other family members and loved ones are scattered across the landscape, under headstones that bear brief testament to their short lives. Ascending the hill, where I know Mary Ann is buried, I stop to catch my breath before continuing on. Night has fallen like a soft, dark blanket, and I know I must be very careful not to step in any freshly dug graves. Finally, I see the white marble headstone that stands out like a beacon in the darkness. Eager to be by my sister's side again, I quicken my pace, and once there, collapse on my knees next to her final resting place. More tears spill from my eyes as I reach out to touch the cold stone. And I thought I had wrung myself dry of tears. Apparently I was wrong. Tracing the letters of her name with my finger, nonsense begins to spill from my mouth as I weep. Anne, I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive me? I broke our promise and agreed to marry the Baron if he promised to save your life. He gave me something to put in your tea, but I think it must have been poison. Had to be. Why else would you be here if it wasn't? Anne. I want to continue. The need to be heard and forgiven is so powerful within me that it is like a physical pain. But I know that it is a pain from which there will be no relief. Mary Ann was dead, and she could no more forgive me than she could hear me. The thought brings on a new torrent of tears, and desperately I grope inside my cloak for a handkerchief. As I fumble blindly amongst my clothes, I look down, and something strange catches my eye. I stop what I am doing and lean down to inspect it more closely. Was it my imagination, or was the ground around Mary Ann's grave looking a bit different than it had earlier today? Idly, I pull one of my gloves off and reach down to touch the soft brown earth. The soil under my fingers is clumpy and feels as though it has been sifted through. My stomach turns over and I feel as if I'm going to be sick. Grave robbers, I think numbly. For years our family had been hearing of such filth, who came and desiccated graves just to steal the jewelry that might lie with the corpse. But there were other rumors too. Rumors of men who stole the bodies of newly dead ladies for other, more sinister purposes. The thought that my very own sister might be a victim of those sadistic monsters causes my world to spin, and I know that I really am going to be sick. Struggling to stand, I am fully prepared for what is about to happen, when suddenly someone grabs me from behind. A shriek of surprise tears itself from my throat as I land on the hard ground with someone's weight on top of me. The rosary beads I had been holding are knocked from my grasp, and I struggle to wrench myself free of the strong hands that are reaching for me, even as I try desperately to pull away. there is a harsh, rasping sound near my ear, one that reverberates like the pants of a wild animal, and somehow I am able to position myself enough to get a good look at my attacker. When I do, my blood freezes cold in my veins. Mary Ann is writhing above me, her brown hair a mess of tangles from where it has pulled free of her plait, and her white burial gown is stained with dirt. Even though I am disoriented, I can hear my heart pounding out a frantic rhythm in my ears. I notice that her skin is as white as the mask of death, but more harrowing than that are her teeth. The incisors are sharp and long, much like Liam's were in the dream that I had. My struggles become more frantic when I realize that she is attempting to bite me with those frightful teeth, and there is a strength in her hands that wasn't there before. A thought descends on me, and I know that if she wins this skirmish, I will die. She will kill me. Her own sister. Desperate, I open my mouth and try pleading with her. "Mary Ann, it's me, Lydia. Stop. You don't know what you're doing." My entreaties do nothing, and I feel my grip on her grasping hands begin to slip. Her wild eyes and red mouth dip closer to my exposed throat, and I allow the scream that I have been holding back to burst from me. Her hot breath is stale against my skin, and I squeeze my eyes tight. Then, suddenly, I hear the sound of pounding feet coming towards us, and Mary Ann's weight has been ripped off of me. I hear her shriek of anger and frustration, and then the sound of more running. Still paralyzed with fear, I can only lie on the ground while a vicious scuffle occurs somewhere over my head. The sound of Mary Ann growling and snarling like a feral cat reaches me, as well as the deep laboured breathing of someone else I can't see. My body begins to tremble as the sounds of the skirmish become more and more intense. Finally, I hear Mary Ann let loose a horrible scream, and there is a terrible thud before blackness enfolds itself around me. When next I open my eyes, I am surprised to find myself back in my own room. The weak light of the afternoon sun is pouring through the window, and I can hear the comings and goings of the servants in the hall. Gingerly, I sit up and prepare to rise when there is a soft knock at my door. "Come in," I call, and my voice sounds very hoarse, even to my own ears. The door opens, and Martha comes in bearing a tray of food. "I'm glad to see you're finally awake, Miss Lydia," she says, and comes closer to my bedside. "For a moment there, I thought you was going to sleep the whole day away, but I can't say I rightly blame you." Her eyes wander, almost of their own accord, to Mary Ann's bed, but she stops herself with a little shake before setting up the silver tray on top of my bed covers. "I thought you'd be wanting something light for this afternoon, miss, considering that dinner will be served in due course." I look down. A simple spread of hot gruel, orange juice, tea, and buttered biscuits are arranged neatly next to a white lace napkin and utensils. Somewhat surprised to discover that I am famished, I pick up my spoon and start to tuck in, when suddenly I stop and look up curiously at Martha. "Did anyone ask for me last night?" I inquire, eager to know if I was at all missed. "Last night, miss? No, I don't rightly think so. What with all that's happened, the missus took to her room and hasn't been out of bed to see anyone all day. And your father locked himself in his study, and he left for work early this morning." "Oh," I reply, feeling somewhat confused by the state of events. Was there something you needed from your mother, miss? I don't rightly know if she'd be up for talking today, but I can deliver a message for you, if you like. Oh, no, thank you, Martha. I was just wondering if anyone had noticed. I stop mid-sentence, not wanting to tell Martha where I had gone to last night, if indeed I had gone anywhere. Notice what, miss? Martha inquired, looking more worried by the second. Noticed if I had taken one of Father's brandy bottles. I lied, but Martha looked so shocked by my confession I hardly think she noticed. I know it was naughty of me, I went on hastily before she could say anything, but yesterday was very trying. Promise you won't say anything to Mother or Father? Well, miss, Martha began hesitantly, it's not my place to tell you how you should grieve. The good Lord knows that we all have our little ways. I promise I won't say anything to anyone, as long as you promise not to make a habit out of it. You're a respectable young lady, Miss Lydia, and I hate to see you go down a hard road because of this tragedy. Despite myself, I smile at her. I promise, Martha, I said, and she nodded at me, flashing a small smile of her own. Satisfied that there wouldn't be any strange inquiries as to my whereabouts yesterday eve, I started in on my meal, and Martha left me alone once more. As I chewed and swallowed, I kept replaying last night's events over and over in my mind, and by the time I had nearly finished eating, I decided that it all must have been some strange grief-stricken dream. After all, I was here in my own bed, wearing my own nightgown, and not the dress and travelling cloak I had on last night. My hands are clean, and not at all stained with dirt from my sister's grave. Yes, it had to have been a dream, but the memory of Mary Ann's white face and her terrible red mouth loom before me in my mind's eye, but I shake it off. A nightmare, then, I decide firmly, and set my tray aside. Rising from my bed, I stretch languidly towards the ceiling and set about getting ready for the afternoon. At the vanity mirror, I grab my hairbrush and feel a small twinge of sadness as I gaze down at Mary Ann's things. Briefly, I consider removing them from the table and putting them somewhere safe until I can bear to look at them again. But I brush the thought aside. To do that would be like erasing her from my memory, as if she had never existed at all. I'll keep them exactly where they are, I decide firmly. It's what Mary Ann would do if I were in her place. Content with my decision, I began to run the brush through my hair. The even strokes are comforting, and little by little, my long tresses begin to unwind from their unruly mess. As I move a lock of hair out of my way so that I can brush the underside, something shiny catches my attention, and I stop. Staring into the mirror, I see that there is some sort of chain that appears to be lying among my lacy nightgown and coiling itself around my neck. Confused, I pull my hair back away from my collar, and my breath catches in my throat. Around my pale neck is a string of beads, at the base of which swings a little silver crucifix. The very crucifix the stranger at the pub had given me the night before.